Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Okay, just a few announcements. In case anyone's not noticed, outside they're resurfacing tonight. So St Peter's Place, Westgate Gardens gates are open for the evening, and members of the public should leave the Guildhall by the Riverside doors behind you unless you require disabled access, in which case it may still be through the glass doors and we'll sort it out for you. Not a problem. There's no fire alarm planned for this evening. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave through the nearest safe exit. The assembly point will be the Tower House car park as usual. That's through the doors and then into Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-destructive method they think are suitable. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you're seated in the public gallery, it is possible that cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended you make a member of the staff aware who can direct you where to sit, and that will be avoided. Okay. So welcome to the agenda part of the Cabinet. The Cabinet is part of the Council responsible for most day-to-day decisions. It is chaired by the leader, who is elected by the Council, and that's me, Alan Baldock. The other Cabinet members as follows: Councillor Sol, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance. He's not here tonight. Councillor Castle, Cabinet Member for Property and IT. Councillor Hazelton, Cabinet Member for Housing. Councillor Dawkins, Cabinet Member for the Environment and Climate Change. Councillor Charlotte Cornell, Cabinet Member for Council Services, Culture and Heritage. Councillor Chris Cornell, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Inclusion and the Coastal Towns Champion. Councillor Ricketts is Cabinet Member for Tourism, Transport, Performance and Oversight, and is also the Rural Champion. And Connie Nolan, the Community Engagement, Safety and Enforcement. The Cabinet collectively provides strategic leadership to the Council. So let's start, as we always do in every single meeting in the world. Apologies for absence. Any of those, Vanessa, apart from Mike, of course?
No apologies. Oh, sorry, apologies from Councillor Sol.
Yeah, thanks for that. So it's just Mike's not here tonight. Declarations of interest by any officers or members. Is any recorded already, Vanessa? Okay, does anyone want to do that? I've got Lee. Go ahead, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Although it's not the overall local plan, because we discussed the park and ride at the local plan tonight, I have an OSI, which is a site in the draft local plan that backs onto my property, but I do have a dispensation from the legal and monitor officer that I can continue to discuss, debate and vote on all items. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. That's appreciated and all noted, as we've said before. And I'm no doubt there'll be other of those coming through in the local plan debate as well. So that'd be fantastic. Is it both of you? And yeah, okay. Let's go for Marie first, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to declare that I'm a director on the board of Kinenco. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's all noted. Bill, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to note that I am also a director of Stour Environmental Credits Limited.
That's great. Thanks for that. Is anybody else? No, that's okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Any announcements by members of Cabinet? Yeah, okay. I've got one actually, but let's just make a note of this. Nobody else to. So tonight, I think our hearts are open to the families and friends of those young people who have lost their lives to meningitis in the last few days here in Canterbury. I'm sure we all feel the same, but I'm unashamedly can shed a few tears with you, and I think this time is unimaginable. We cannot begin to imagine how families and friends are coping with the anxiety of supporting those who are currently unwell with meningitis, and we hope and we all pray for their speedy recovery. Canterbury City Council will make sure that the UK Health Security Agency and the NHS have any support they need and any that they request from us. We're proud to offer that assurance and confident our residents and all our councillors would expect us to do nothing less than that. I know from experience our amazing team of officers in every part of this council will be there to deliver that collaboration that's needed. It will, as always, be done quietly, competently, and mindful of the tragedy and the anxiety of families and friends will be facing now and in the coming months. I think we just need to reflect for a moment or two before I start a meeting that this week especially has been not been what we'd expected, and it's a big shock to all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Cabinet. Thank you, members of the staff. Thank you, and officers. Appreciated. Okay, we have 2 members of the public registered to speak. Speak now or in front of the agenda item? Yep. Okay, that's really good. So we call you both to speak before the agenda item. Thank you very much. So let's now approve at item 5 the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of February. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Seconded.
Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate it. We can confirm by general assent, unless anyone's got anything particular that we need to raise. If we agree that that was a reasonable and proper record of our meeting, I think we do. Thank you very much. That's agreed. Okay, we move now to References Committee. That's on pages 17 to 23 and the supplement items as well. So we need to note the minutes of the Overview Committee on the 12th of February and the Companies Advisory Committee on the 26th of February. Have we got any comments on that? I would just start the conversation by saying, as always, I appreciate enormously the input from both of those committees, and particularly the Overview, which is a regular contributor to the Cabinet. And this time, again, in a similar way, the Companies Advisory Committee giving a good oversight to those agenda items, and we appreciate it. And I certainly take some time to read those minutes and actually work through those as well, because I think they need to advise our decisions and judgments properly. Anybody got comments to do that? Okay, I think, yep, I know we all appreciate that, and we look for that as well. Okay, we're going to move into part A of our agenda. That's the part where members of the public can complement our discussions and speak before them. So the first item is Kent Joint Municipal Waste Management Strategy 25 to 30, pages 24 to 66 in our agendas. We don't have any public speakers logged for that item. Is that still correct? That's okay. So with this one, we've got Nikki Mills would be our normal officer, but I'm going to ask Charlotte Cornell, our lead member on this, to introduce the item. And at the end of that, please, if you can read out the proposal and seek a seconder, and then we'll go to debate if we can, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Cabinet. We're asking you tonight to endorse the strategy, which is contained within papers, and it's a strategy that covers the years 2026 to 2031, which is committing to continued partnership working across Kent's authorities to deliver better recycling, reduce waste, and progress towards a much more integrated circular economy. This is a collaboration between Kent County Council and the 12 district, borough and city councils, which of course includes us here at Canterbury City Council. And it provides the framework for managing the household waste until 2031. In the report, you'll see there's a lot of attention given to towards the need to prepare for local government reorganisation, and there's certainly a focus in the report that resource and officer attention across the authorities will rightly need to be invested there to make sure that the behaviour changes and economy pathway continues to be quite streamlined across that local government reorganisation. The current position, you'll have noted in the report, is that Kent has reduced landfills significantly, although disappointingly, recycling performance had declined slightly since the pandemic, and we must need to improve that to meet our national targets. Focus areas in the report include a stronger and continued partnership working across existing Kent authorities and future Kent authorities as they may be. Stronger communication, always updating and analysing the effectiveness of our accommodations, not allowing those to become tired or stale or left behind as we move on in terms of digital technology. And engagement with residents across different platforms, traditional and emerging. We also have new initiatives coming in, such as communal food waste programs, potential recycling of different items that have been long awaited, and reuse programs across the county. It's a strategy that I'm very happy to recommend for endorsement. So I'm asking you to endorse the Kent Joint Municipal Waste Management Strategy, which commits the council to work in partnership with all waste collection authorities, all district, borough and city councils and Kent County Council as waste disposal authority to share best practice, inform the delivery of efficient and effective waste collection services, and to engage residents and wider partners to develop and deliver joint action plans towards achieving a circular economy. That was a mouthful at the end there. That's what I'm asking you to endorse. May I seek a seconder?
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Dawkins to second that, if I may, please. Thank you. Okay. You got any comments on anyone at all? I mean, obviously, I think we've all read that and taken that. I've got Chris and then Mel, please. Thank you.
Always like to ask a difficult question on my behalf. I mean, what's interesting about the strategy is obviously the substantive change in the sector over the next couple of years, whether it's the collection of communal food waste or then the introduction about picking up soft plastics and the additional requests around energy efficiency. So obviously a lot of things are changing over the next couple of years. And I really like the focus around behavioural science and nudge. What I was interested in, however, is there's some suggestions that changes to the legislative environment, particularly with the deposit recycling scheme, might see our proportion of recycling actually drop significantly to start with, because we'll be picking up less tonnage on the roadside, not because of any fault on our own, so to speak, because there's other places where effectively people can deliver to. So is there a process by which we are kind of forecasting that or able to forecast that so that when it comes to that point, we can see that it's not a drop in service, it's just almost what we would expect to see out of a change in behaviour? Because I'm just very aware that we've set the KPIs for that period of time, and this has been identified as a potential risk like 18 to 20 months out.
That's a good point. Do you want to take that, Charlotte?
Actually, a really interesting point. I mean, you're right, our KPIs have been set to cover that period. So if there is a drop in tonnage because refuse is going to alternative and preferred destinations, how are we reflecting that in our reporting? It might not be, it's not a failure of KPI reporting if you miss the KPI and explain in your reporting why that's so. And then it allows us at that point to change the KPI there's then a tangible fence at which to change the KPI, because you have evidence that you're not failing in refuse destination. The KPI is no longer fit for purpose, but we can't prove it's not fit for purpose until we meet that particular fence. But that's worth bearing in mind. So when the company's advisory committee has that data in the years to come, and when Cabinet see that data, hopefully it's because recycling is going to better destinations rather than not being collected at all and being reflected in a reduced tonnage. Thank you, though.
Yeah, can I perhaps suggest that we make a note in the minute of this meeting to say that we discuss that, actually, because I think there's plenty of people out there that will be picking holes in what we do, and this is an open goal that they can pick holes in that's not of our making. So that's probably well worth noting that, and then we can reflect on it next year and see how we got on, because then we probably averaged a fair reason how many tonnes we've lost to the correct route, really.
Absolutely. I think we should make a note of it. It might not be the only reason for reduced tonnage, but we put it into the mix for analysis if and when it happens.
Let's do that then, shall we? Are you okay with that, Vanessa? Yeah, thanks. You've got a note of that already. Mel, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, mine's just a comment really, not a complicated question. Well, no, it wasn't that complicated, but yeah, it was just, yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, it was interesting reading the strategy. You know, I was aware of the strategy for my time on KCC, and I was kind of used to go to some of the meetings, and then I've been in plastic-free Canterbury, and I know that we've got plastic-free Whitstable, so I know there's a lot of people outside the strategy wanting to make a difference as well. I was, you know, glad to see that one of the main bits in the strategy was about behaviour change, and, you know, a lot of money, you know, a lot of emphasis being put on that, because to me, after all the conversations I've had with people, that ultimately is the main thing that we need to happen. We can put all the mechanics in place and all the incentives and all the nudges and stuff, but if people don't make that change, we're not going to get the results that we want. So I think, and they did a little pilot, didn't they, and it was shown, there was evidence to show that it's gone up 20% after that little bit of support and nudging sort of thing. Just wanted to sort of, you know, make reference to when I was in Holland, and I'm sure a lot of us have been there and seen how well they do stuff over there. Like supermarket, there's a queue in the shop, and I didn't know why people were queuing. Maybe there was a nice offer going on, but actually, no, they were queuing to put in their bottles and all their recycling, and then they would get some money back and stuff. So that was a really good incentive, and, you know, deposit payment scheme coming down the line. Hopefully, that will sort of unlock a lot more of these kind of schemes, and we will start seeing some major changes. But yeah, behaviour change is one of the main factors that we need.
Any comments on
Absolutely
Charlotte?
reflect that, and the behaviour change we've seen. Sorry, don't want to spoil the next item, but behaviour change with regards to food waste collection has been a major thing here in this particular district, and is proving successful across Kent. And yes, no one warns you that if you work in local government or are elected to local government, whenever you go on holiday, you take picture of bins and recycling facilities. No one knows you're a very special kind of tourist when you work in local government.
Oh, she just hit the amount of bin pictures I've got. Holiday snacks.
Our WhatsApp groups are peppered with them, aren't they? Photos of bins and stuff, aren't they? It's really good. Okay, is there any other comments or points? I think it's useful to have that firmed up now. We know exactly where we're going and what we've got to aim for. So I think the vote now for that is to accept that as the way forward, that one. Thank you very much. We'll get it on the display next time round. We had this last time, didn't we? Yeah, I think next time we vote, it'll be, there we look at that. So it's just like by magic, isn't it, really? It's carried unanimously anyway. Thank you very much for that. So that's really good. And Bill's not voted, which is fortunate, I suppose, in many senses of the word. So that's sorry, not to worry about that. That's okay. Right. Okay, we're going to move to item 8 now, which is the Canterbury Environment Company Service Delivery Plan for 26-27. That's pages 67 to 97. We got this. This is the one where we've got the 2 public speakers. So okay, we take the public speakers now. So if I leave that with you, Vanessa, to call the public speakers, and we're listening on what they've got to say. Thank you.
It was Councillor Peter Campbell to speak first.
Oh. Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Cabinet, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today on this item 8 on the agenda, the Canterbury Environment Company Service Delivery Plan. or SDP as I'll refer to it. The SDP, as you know, was presented to the company's advisory committee on the 26th of February, of which I'm a member, and you'll have seen the minutes of that meeting, plus a summary of the key feedback on page 68 of the agenda pack. And the unanimous outcome of that committee meeting was that the Canenco service delivery plan for 26-27 should be approved. Notwithstanding that approval, there was a lengthy and robust debate at the committee meeting with lots of positive and constructive contributions from all councillors of all parties, and very helpful responses from the Canenco representatives and the council's lead contracts manager. That debate is reflected in the minutes, and I have to compliment the person who took the minutes to capture that debate, which would have been quite difficult, I think, to get down. And it identified 43 different issues in various bullet points. And the reason for my attendance tonight is to try and focus the attention on some of those items raised, because if you plough through the 43 bullet points, you may miss some of the key issues. So I'm just really going to run through a few issues which I'd like to bring up for the debate. Firstly, a key concern raised by all councillors was that there remains a lack of reporting on Canenco's performance some 6 months after the contract was executed. It was agreed at the advisory committee that KPI reporting needed to be provided. There are 27 KPIs across all 3 Canenco contracts, and the fact that this hasn't been provided suggests that it's not a simple activity to collect that data. And I request that some support is provided to the lead contracts manager, perhaps some sort of IT fix that makes it a much more automated process where perhaps once a month they hit a button and it spews out the data and it's a nice report. That clearly isn't the case at the moment, and it really shouldn't be an onerous additional task for an individual. I'd also request that KPI information is made public. The Canenco contracts represent a material chunk of our council spending, and in the spirit of transparency, we should be enabling our residents to know how effectively their council tax is being discharged. As I say, 27 KPIs is quite a lot, and doing that every month might be a bit overwhelming, but some simple traffic light system or maybe on a quarterly basis to start with might be achievable. And while it was agreed to approve the service delivery plan as presented, I do believe it should be updated once those KPIs have been produced to ensure that the proposed plan is aligned to performance. For example, if one area of performance is poor and trending adversely, then the plan needs to reflect how that's going to be addressed. And at the moment, it's a lot of floating activities, all of which seem very positive, but we don't know if they're actually geared towards improving performance in particular areas. And finally, the last area I'd like to raise is the service delivery plan reports on £833,000 of growth bid submissions, but it's unclear to what extent those growth bid submissions represent contractual variations, legislation-driven changes, or baseline cost corrections such as inflation. In other words, to what extent are we spending more for the original scope that was in the specification within the contract, and how much of it is scope growth? And it's not clear in the SDP what that is. So I would like to see a detailed sort of change control breakdown of that, and that's maybe something that's reported on a say a quarterly basis as well. I hope you find these comments constructive and helpful in improving the delivery of these critical council services. I commend the report as it was done, and it was a good presentation from the representatives at the meeting, but I think there is some room for improvement on performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. That's appreciated, and indeed those points are noted. Okay, thank you.
So, Guy, to come forward now.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Cabinet, for hearing me. So it's almost exactly 12 months since I sat in this chamber when Cabinet approved the service delivery plan for 25-26. And at that time, I raised concerns about whether councillors and residents could clearly see whether the service the council was commissioning from Canenco was actually being delivered to the standard expected. As you will have heard, the company's advisory committee considered this plan 2 weeks ago and raised similar concerns. In particular, the committee noted that the SDP did not contain or include contractual KPIs or the company's performance against them, and asked Cabinet to give special regard to that issue when considering approval. Over the past year, I will recognise there has been some progress. Contracts have finally been executed after several years of operating without specifications, and they are publicly available so everyone can see the standards the service is supposed to be is expected to meet. Steps are also being taken to address procurement issues, and officers have provided a clearer company's governance matrix explaining the oversight roles of different committees. However, a number of significant concerns remain. The recent audit report on Conenco governance gave substantial assurance. However, procurement compliance and the absence, until very recently, of fully executed contracts and specifications were outside of the scope of that audit, which inevitably limits the assurance it can provide. A LITR roundtable that was promised last year so that residents and customers could engage with the council and its contractor has also yet to take place. More importantly, Cabinet papers refer to contractual performance information being reported to various committees, yet there appears to be no public record of the full contractual KPI framework ever being presented. Without that information, councillors cannot easily verify whether the service is performing as expected. We also still do not have a clear explanation as to why the unit cost of street cleansing in this district appears significantly higher than neighbouring authorities. And even with the limited data released through FOI, it appears to suggest that the performance thresholds in that very contract has been exceeded several times, potentially leading to contractor default, hardly picking holes. So after 12 months, councillors still appear to be relying on audit reports, anecdotes and FOI to understand how a £10 million a year service is performing. Taken together, that leaves councillors in an unusual position of being asked to approve a service delivery plan without clear evidence of how well the service is performing. Cabinet is therefore being asked to approve the plan largely on assurance. So my question to Cabinet is simply this. Before approving the service delivery plan tonight, are members satisfied that they have seen clear evidence that the service is performing against the contractual standards set by the council? Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. I appreciate that. Okay. Right. This item will be introduced by the Cabinet member, responsible, Charlotte Cornell. So, Charlotte, could I ask you to introduce the report and make comments, probably against the speakers, if you wish to, but only if you wish to. And when you've done your report, and before we start the debate, if you could propose and seek a seconder sitting next to you on your left, probably, then we can get on and get the debate underway. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you very much to both of the speakers whose comments were useful and constructive, and I really do appreciate you both taking the time to come and speak to Cabinet tonight. We are going through a slight period of change in contracts, which obviously is presenting us with a lot of opportunities, and we are continuing to make some changes to the way we report. We've established that there is a gap in reporting, in that Cabinet is receiving KPIs as part of the annual report, but not the full list of them. This will be rectified, and a report will be taken to Cabinet with this information when the 25-26 outturns are available in full. I also really did enjoy or feel there was merit in Councillor Campbell's plea that a clearer link to activities presented in the report and potential KPI outcomes is presented in a digestible, accessible way. I too would really like to see the way we present, not a smorgasbord of activities, but make it a more logical sequencing of the activities we are undertaking in and how that potentially could improve the KPI agenda. So I really liked that report, that particular highlighting of some of the material that the Companies Advisory Committee focused on. And I absolutely, in my discussions, which are regular with the contracts team, will make sure that's focused in future presentations to the committees that it reports to. I think that's an excellent idea. I think the way we present our corporate objectives and tie them to UNESCO aims is presented in that really clear, understandable way. And so perhaps other reports could follow such a structure. So thank you very much for the suggestion. I absolutely will take that on board. I also appreciate the acknowledgement on the huge steps that the team have taken to make sure that the contracts are completed, sealed, signed and publicly available, and the important steps that have been taken to clear and transparent procurement and to make sure that's all up to date. As ever, running a waste service is like being on a hamster wheel. You will absolutely never, ever get there, but we're trying to make sure the wheels don't come off, and they won't. We have to provide this regular legal service that everyone depends on every day. And I'm delighted when we get 98% right, which we do, but next year I'll be even more delighted for 99. And having speakers that come and tell us what we're doing wrong or what we could do better is actually a delightful part of the service. And I'm really pleased you both spoke tonight to try and make it an even better service for our residents. To the report, the Service Delivery Plan, the SDP, the Companies Advisory Committee reviews this plan each year and it monitors risks and milestones and governance arrangements. The performance data is reported separately to Cabinet and scrutiny. And there was incredibly useful and detailed feedback from the Companies Advisory Committee 2 weeks ago. I listened to the meeting in full. I also reflect your opinion that the minutes were incredibly detailed and useful. And Cabinet will consider those very carefully when we again look at the next period of reporting data and the full report in the autumn. Councillors, the key feedback from the Companies Advisory Committee report was around the key performance metrics. Councillors need clearer data, clearer presentation data, maybe a traffic light system, maybe more data publicly available digitally. As you know, we have been battling other digital prescient issues over the last year, which have taken an awful lot of resource from our digital teams. However, emerging from that particular swamp does present us with new opportunities to do things differently with the presentation of other data from other departments. Monitoring shouldn't rely heavily or at all on freedom of information requests, is what the Companies Advisory Committee said, and future reports need to be clearer. Takeaways from the report to my Cabinet colleagues, and having said all that I've just said, this report is for your endorsement and approval tonight, and I am recommending it to you for endorsement and approval. This report takes away how we will implement and phase the Luff project maintenance and how an additional team has been recruited to make sure that those sites that are being brought to the City of Canterbury look as good a year down the line as they do on the day they're unveiled. The introduction of HVO for our fleet by the end, for some of our fleet by the end of 2025. We, of course, will continue to strive to miss fewer collections, and there is an emphasis on avoiding as many assisted collections as possible as we continue to go through a period with an ageing and more vulnerable population of increased assisted collections coming onto our waste streams. So additional demands on the service, but we absolutely want to drive down any of those important collections for our most vulnerable customers. It was delightful to see far fewer issues reported on the coast, even though there was a comparatively hot summer. However, the report does acknowledge that this came with increased reporting of overflowing mist bins in other parts of the district. We want to mitigate doing an excellent job elsewhere, resulting in a knock-on impact elsewhere. So again, where one success exists, it can't be at the expense of another area, and how we make sure our resource is balanced to enable optimum delivery. There's a large increase of food collection tonnage, partly in relation to the excellent communications and behaviour change across the district. This is encouraging, as I said to Councillor Dawkins earlier. I think much can be learnt from the prac test therein to the recycling strategies that emerge as part of the joint efforts. Increased collection, up 14.5% of street litter by tonnage, as Chris Cornell points out this, of course, could be this could look very different when we come to other impacts. Graffiti removal is swift and effective, especially offensive tags. They are dealt with so swiftly, making sure that our district remains welcoming, polite and unintimidating for all who visit and live here. And we're working to, this year, pick up more of the area's slip roads, making sure we're working hard to secure those dates and those key slip roads off the A2 and the 299. We're hoping to litter pick some of them where they really are and improve the environment for everyone who lives in those areas. We are, in 2026, undertaking site surveys and condition reports of all our public conveniences. If you want to look at the real lowlights of the report, they're on page 85. If you want to look at some that I haven't mentioned already, if you want to look at some strong corporate social responsibility outcomes, they're on page 89. There will always be lowlights in a report like this. If a report didn't have it, it would be lying. However, overall, I'm absolutely sure that this service delivery plan for waste collection and street cleansing, grounds maintenance and associated works, and public convenience, cleaning and maintenance for 26-27 should be approved, and I seek a seconder.
I'm happy to second.
Thanks, Alice. That's already noted. Thank you. Okay. Any more comments? Thank you for that, Charlotte. That's appreciated. That's a good rundown. It's a good report. As you say, life is not perfect, so that's it's a good report. Thank you for that. I'm going to cut to you, Chris. Thank you. Go on then. Go first, Mel.
I'm
No
not ready now.
fighting.
Yeah, no, it was just to sort of pick up on some of the points that speakers made, and then you kind of came along. So it's all been mentioned anyway. I put it in my notes, but reading on the minutes from that meeting. So yeah, sort of, and you've mentioned that we're going to have an opportunity to sort of look into that, about how these reports are presented in the future. Obviously, the way that the governance matrix had been set out is that the advisory committee didn't have the KPIs. That was just the way it was. So, you know, now we just need to have a report that's the same for each committee and quite simply done. So yeah, that will be done. Yeah, and then to sort of have this data. I mean, I'm just sort of saying what you've just said, really. But I mean, it's just kind of, I think that's important that we recognise that we want to make those changes, and that will happen, and we get that opportunity to sort of have a good look at it and sort it out, basically. There was a couple of other things, just to, you know, when we have that opportunity to talk about what the next stage of the service delivery plan is. There were a few things that I noticed people said in the meeting, like the Skip Days initiative. I don't know, it didn't go down very well, but I wonder if we could consider a pilot perhaps. But we can talk about that at that meeting that we have. And then there was an issue, someone asked graffiti, how are we able to publicise how much is spent on graffiti removal? I don't know if that's done already. That sounds like quite a good idea. And what else? Yeah, and there was something about the software issues that you just sort of mentioned, and I wondered what the plan was to get that sorted out. Maybe you can mention that. But yeah, all in all, I'm happy to support the report on the basis that we're going to go back and work out how to do it better. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. I think you're right. I think next year, if I read this right, it should be a lot of cleaner report with a lot more KPIs that are more related and stuff. It's this time next year. Is that the sort of the time frame for those sort of changes to the way of reporting?
Cabinet should have 25-26 reporting in the autumn. Sooner.
So that's even better. So we can have a pat on the back for that then.
With changes potentially coming into contracts, we hope sooner, but yeah, definitely before next year.
That's amazing. That's really good. So that's good. I'm trying to follow through the process of how we're improving this now and getting that through. That's really encouraging. That's really good. No point in half doing it. We might as well just do it properly and get it set up for the years to come, aren't we? That's really good. I think I'm going to go with Chris next, followed by Connie. That's okay.
Yes, I mean, I thank the public speakers for some of their concerns and comments. I think what's kind of struck me about this whole process is sometimes we forget very much where we were. I remember sitting with Alex around Community Committee with Serco presentations multiple years ago, where we were baffled with science, wonderful diagrams, and very clear traffic light systems, which effectively told us very much. We didn't have access to Audit Committee to really look at their procurement structures. We knew nothing about how they engage with CSR or their workforce. We had no ability to be able to fluctuate the contract to take back our own toilet blocks or to be able to add additional services in as a result of luff works or create flexibility to do additional work and things effectively on the coast. We might have requested FOIs, but in the same time, they might have knocked it back exactly, and we wouldn't have answered with the flexibility that we've got. I think the fact that we are having this conversation is good. It is not there yet, but to be honest, it definitely wasn't there under the last contract. And I think that there is a challenge to want to judge it by exactly the same standards as you would have on an external contract. And actually, some of those standards don't exactly work because we have a flexibility which we have from having a service in-house. So I'm glad that we're thinking about how we present the information. I would appreciate if it's coming to Cabinet, perhaps there's an opportunity to at least share it with Overview or those other people in Overview. So if we're looking to agree a structure, because that first report will be a structure for how we present the information, they can also be involved in that subsequent conversation, because I think they have raised some useful points here. And I'd be particularly interested in Peter's suggestion about how he'd like to better present the information relating to changes and variance in service. Because I would certainly be aware that when I used to see Serco presentations, I wouldn't hear anything about what the associated costs that they would have to be dealing with and how that would affect their contract. You'd literally just look at the KPI, even if their terms for all of these different regulatory compliances had changed. So, I mean, the service development plan, I'm happy to agree as in a plan for the future work. I think it would be useful if something clearly is more coming to Cabinet, that it also sit in front of Overview. But I would just comment that effectively, I feel, ironically, there's far more information that I have about the service than I used to feel I had 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think I agree with you on that, actually. It's looking pretty good. Charlotte, do you want to just comment on whether you think it should go to Overview first, and maybe we'll take it back and have a chat in informal Cabinet?
I'll answer both Mel and Chris here in a little bit. So on skip days potentially for high student areas or other areas, I'd have to work that into budget planning and budget bids for the next year. But absolutely, it's on our agenda, and Sarah and I've talked about this, and I'm not against building up a budget allocation towards it. I think in some areas it could absolutely serve an area incredibly well. Graffiti removal and the comms around graffiti removal, the company's advisory committee asked for it. I think that would be useful for residents to see the excellent work done, to know how quickly it is done, and to know the cost of it being done. And because it is their money, of course, being spent, and people rightly are very angry when people deface our lovely city. And I find if it went to Overview, I know companies advisory committee provide they're incredibly useful to me on a very specific issue, but it might be useful for Overview to look at how this reporting is structured. It's an awful lot of residents' money spent on the most important and visible service to them and their daily lives. So I'd be very happy for Overview to look at it if that was a viable governance route for it. I couldn't answer to that because of the existence of companies advisory committee who do an overview-like job for this service. I mean, I think it probably, if it's, I'm looking over here and they're nodding, perhaps it's more CAC to very specifically look at the form and presentation of reporting preferred to act as overview for this particular service. I'm unsure. Perhaps I'll defer over here for advice.
Take that, Susie, and just see we come.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, it's a really complicated setup because Konenko information is reported to 4 different places. So the idea of CAC is it does the detailed work before it comes to Cabinet, so that could well be the place to have a look. Just to reassure everybody, we have had an in-depth conversation at management team about reframing how the information is presented, touching on ideas like we present the same to everybody and they focus in on the bits that they're meant to focus in on, which is where I think some of the complications happened, because we're trying to stick within the kind of governance framework, rather than just producing one good report that everybody can look at through a slightly different lens. But we'll take it all away, and we'll bring it back through that route.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I think, as we've fully accept, we've been working hard on this since you've been in administration to get things right, and report better and a bit more openly. So it's work to do still, as you said earlier, and that's absolutely fine. We're ears open, and obviously our speakers tonight highlight a few of those points too, and rightly so. That's fine. Connie and then Alex, please.
Thank you, and I welcome this report and wholeheartedly support it. I was just sort of reflecting on the bigger picture, really. We haven't got striking bin workers, which is, touch wood, okay, all right. We've got, in the budget, we've got room for an apprenticeship, which I think is a very positive thing. But it's the statutory duty of the council to empty people's bins. And I think that so far, okay, there's always, tweaks and whatever. We've actually done that well. And I think there's always areas for improvement. But I have to single out just a couple of things, which the street cleaners, and I think they do an excellent job. I also have to say I have never seen such quick removal of graffiti, especially racist graffiti, as defacing Lady Wootton's Green last week. And I think that was, exemplary that was done so fast. Because residents have a pride in the city. And also it is a UNESCO World Heritage Place. We don't have to break a sweat to get the tourists in. The streets are full of German, French, Spanish young people who come to visit again. Thank goodness they're coming back. And it's really important that we recognise the role of Konenko in presenting the best face. And I'm not forgetting about the coast, because I know in the summer people flock down to the coast, and I think it's right that the resources go to the coast in the summer. And I welcome your point about making sure that we don't disadvantage yet another. But to go back to my first point, we have a statutory duty to empty people's bins, and that's the most important thing. And I have to say, I, as a ward councillor, have noticed that I'm getting less, touch wood again, less complaints about missed bins, and I think that's because the tweaking of the system of saying when a street has been cleared, has been sorted out, because that was a huge problem at the start. Yeah, we're all touching wood here. But I just wanted to say I welcome the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. Over to you, Alex.
Yes, thank you. I put my hand up to speak shortly before Chris spoke, and I was absolutely going to hark back to those days. And I think it is really wonderful to hear from opposition councillors and critical members of the public, critical friends, I hope, who come in here. It's much easier being in opposition these days, I think, than it was when we had to deal with those reports, and perhaps an administration that was less keen to listen. And I think it was recognised within those comments that things are improving, but as has been said, we're not absolutely at the end of the journey, and it would be ludicrous of us to think that we were at the end of the journey. And I think there's been some very good ideas raised by the committee and by members of the public that I'm sure we'll take on. I think we've got really good track record in this administration of when people have asked for more information and better KPIs of putting stuff together and trying to provide more information and be more clear with people. And genuinely, we don't want to hide anything. We want to show people where we're succeeding and where we're failing, and be judged on the actual results. I mean, our much loved Director of Communications, Leo Whitlock, is very keen on saying that bins, dog poo and potholes are the holy trinity of local government. And this report covers the only two that we're responsible from in those lists. And genuinely, I do agree with Connie, at the risk of tempting fate, from where my inbox was when I first became a ward councillor to where it is now, you know, our service is much better. Is it as good as we would like it to be? No, but there are plenty of routes within here of how we can improve it. So I think, you know, I've seconded this. I will support it, with that caveat, which I think comes with everything, which is we will always be seeking to improve things as much as we can. And I think there are some good measures in here that will take us on that journey.
Thanks, Alex. Do you want to say anything more, Charlotte, to close up before we vote, or are you okay? Oh, Pip, beg your pardon. Sorry, missed you. Thank you. Not intentionally, I understand. Thank
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to repeat any of the well-covered ground. I wanted to note particularly the areas of, I loosely call them social responsibility. I think it's probably got a different snappier title. But I'm really pleased to note that Kanenko became a living wage employer and that is signing up to the Armed Forces covenant. And I'm also really pleased to see a recognition of the needs of neurodivergent staff, recognising that that's an area where a number of staff employed by Kanenko are neurodivergent, and they're working with existing neurodivergent staff on improving their policies and practices in that area. So I'm pleased to note that. Also, I said I wasn't going to repeat other ground, but graffiti is a big tick in my box. I represent Westgate Ward. There's a, you know, it's very visible, you know, part of our district. That's ongoing is a great success. I just wanted to say, having two small grandchildren means that you pop into the public loos more often than I might have done in the past. And I have to say, I was not looking forward to popping into Canterbury Lane recently and was really pleasantly surprised. Ditto at Toddler's Cove, that was, you know, back when the weather was better in the autumn. But that is something that I'm really pleased to have noted. And I've just got one kind of query, which maybe can be cleared up by Charlotte for me, about the procurement, you know, following the East Kent Partnership audit. And I note that progress is being made and being reported back through Cabinet. But will it go back to East Kent Partnership at some point? But that's simply because I don't understand, you know, the process clearly enough. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pip. Some good points there. Marie, can you just clear up that bit about East Kent Partnership?
Thank you, Chair. And good question, Councillor Hazelton. In terms of the audit didn't actually look at procurement, and that's because the council had sought external legal advice on the procurement plans that were underway, the work that was underway, and were satisfied that that risk was being managed. What has been agreed at audit is that ECAP will re-look at Kanenko, I think it was 6 months' time, with a specific eye on procurement. So that's in the pipeline, and that will be reported back through East Kent Audit Partnership to our audit committee, but we can include that in any reports to Cabinet.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, that's excellent news. Thank you for that. Do you want to round up anything, Charlotte? And then we'll take it to vote.
Thank you to all my colleagues. Very useful suggestions and questions. I will echo Connie's compliments on our workforce, and as the report notes, the training and retention and initiatives regarding neurodiversity understanding and practices and embedding retention through what we offer our staff and how we care for them is a really key part of the company. And I know the board feel really strongly about how much we show that we value our really important workforce. Miss Binns, the key reason for Miss Binns continues to be poor parking and blocking of roads. The systems and the routes have much cleared up, and the knowledge of staff and drivers in that regard has meant that's been a much more effective service. But a reminder, as ever, out to residents, please park considerately, because it might be a bin, lorry, or it might be an emergency vehicle that needs access. We've got some bids in to hopefully, if they come good, assist us with chewing gum removal in the city centre. We're very aware that the top of town does need some in-depth work. That's at the forefront of my mind. As I said earlier, being a tourist is ruined by working in local government, as is watching period dramas. When I was watching Bridgerton, I could only get angry at how clean their streets were and why no one threw rubbish in the 18th century. So I now compare Canterbury High Street to something I see on Netflix, and so I will be perpetually disappointed, but that does give me high standards to which to hold my team to account on. Thank you. It's not just a story, it's life. There we are. But I'm ready to, I recommend the report. We have a seconder, and I'm good, Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Without any further ado then, so are we if we're happy to endorse that, then vote for, please.
And that's being carried unanimously, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, team. We move on to item 9, which is, I think that's right, is it partnership one? Not turn the page to page 2. That's it. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, partnership 1 business plan. This is the new Latco company that we set up between us, Stover and Thanet, to do basically our council tax collection and all the benefits, claimant stuff and things that go with our responsibilities. Used to be Civica, you might recall, and we set up a new Latco for it. It's been now, this is kind of had its bedded in year, and this is its first, if you like, proper plan going forward. And East Kent Services Committee looked at this plan back in February. We were quite impressed, I think, by the honesty and straightforwardness of the company and their director who gave the presentation. I think they reflect rightly that they are an embryonic business, but they're looking to secure themselves by being good partners with us and the other two councils, but also making sure they don't lose sight of the bigger picture, which could be a role in a unitary authority or a part role or whatever might be the case. So really good to see their ambitions, and I think it's also good to see the way that they are looking after their staff. As we mentioned with Caneco, our staff in Caneco are really important, and the staff are well treated and feel part of it in this company as well, by all accounts. So just in summary, the oversight given by East Kent Services Committee and obviously the cabinets in both the other councils will be in the same place as we are tonight. I think I can be confident that the sort of, if you like, progressive plan they put forward over the next sort of 3 years is resilient. It contains improvements, including the appointment of non-executive director, for example, and on all of those improvements, their sector are being looked at and addressed. So I'm comfortable with that. So to me, having a trusted partner to collect the council tax and manage the associated benefit claims is absolutely essential. Having good collection rates is something that we need, and in fact we've been having for many years, actually, to be honest, and it's not really fallen behind much at all. So to me, they look good as a partner. I think it was a good bet to go with that Latco a couple of years back. I'm pleased we did now. I'm pleased we took that decision. And with that, I would like to recommend to you that the Partnership 1 annual business plan for 26-27 be approved. I need a seconder for that, please.
I shall second.
Thank you, Alex. Any comments from any of you before we go to a vote to approve or not, as that the case may be? Chris?
We should have something so we've got a bit of oversight, right? I have a large number of shops in my ward, and we are all in the great throngs of business rate revaluation, and my inbox is forever full of people. I have to say that, to be honest, the service I get from Partnership One and the clarity with which I'm able to respond to businesses is actually quite impressive and far better than it was under the Civica contract. But I'm interested in 2.1. So when we previously had a contract on bins, we always used to have the figure, for example, on missed bin collections, apart from situations in which it reasonably excused performance. Okay, and one of the issues was always trying to unpick really what those are. Now, what strikes me as my evidence from talking to Partnership One recently is that there is some frustrations in how they interface with the valuation office. In fact, actually cases which they know the valuation office is wrong in its calculation and has sought to clarify that with the VOA, and it's not receiving the response that it demands. It's giving the information to residents that they need to appeal this. But it will look like it is a bad KPI on our point, because we'll be chasing up business rates for something which actually is not our part of the process, right? It is effectively on how these are developed. And particularly at the moment, with the changes to business rates and the introduction of the small business rate relief, it being so clear, I'm just kind of stressing or highlighting for people going back to Partnership One that getting clarity on not just what proportion of those are reasonably inexcused performance, but under what reasons, whose fault is it, is effectively the key thing. So we can clearly identify in what case sometimes it's a breakdown in the process rather than that. I've had several cases where Partnership One have been able to clearly identify to businesses how they should apply, but because they're not getting the information from the VOA, they're just getting them to push new data requests into the back of the system, which, to be honest, means that we're chasing them for business rates, which we reasonably know they shouldn't really be paying, because we know that the VOA should be changing how they operate. I think I've got 4 active cases on that at the moment. So I'm happy to agree as is, but I think it's just the feedback to Partnership One is to be really clear in when we've not met the KPIs, for what reason, and aggregate that clearly in the conversations with us.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I feel that pain. Definitely. So, and also, I do know that they actually have a couple of people in their team that are trying to be the conduit between the two organisations because of this issue that you raise. But I will take that back and ask them to make note of that so that we can actually have that recorded. I think that's reasonable to do that, if that's okay. Yeah, I think it's fine. So that's good. Right. Anybody else with anything? Yeah. 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 Anybody, anything else to say? Okay. Right. We'll just pause for a second or two. Okay, just pause for a moment or two, just while we, yeah. Just while we're doing that, we'll take a vote now, if we can, please, if we're happy with that. Yeah. Thank you for that.
And that's carried unanimously.
Oh, that's fine. Thanks for that. We'll just take a pause for a few moments now, and we'll come back to join the agenda in a moment or two. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. We'll resume our meeting now. We're dealing with item 10 on our agenda, and that's the Stour Environmental Credits Limited Annual Business Plan for 2026 to 27, pages 116 to 122. We don't have any public speakers here. So with the report we've all got in the agenda, which is a pretty good summary, but I will just spend a few moments just to introduce a few points about that, maybe for context and those people that may be listening, because this is a often forgotten but very important part of our sort of strategy as a council to overcome the difficulties of nutrient neutrality, which have been blocking development for far too long. So, in essence, if I just very quickly summarise where we are. So Ashford and Canterbury councils got together in a collaboration to create this company now called Stour Environmental Credits Business. We both councils were new to administration, and both councils council leaders were frustrated by the fact that for too long the issue of nutrient neutrality blocking development across both our districts had not been dealt with, and seemed to be the whole source of buck passing between district councils, government, KCC, and nobody took responsibility for it. So the only people suffering were the fact of developers going out of business, to people just not having homes being built, granny annexes built on the side of houses couldn't be finished. All of those things, but nobody seemed to care. But I was frustrated by it and was going to do something about it, along with Noel Ovenden, who was the leader of Ashford Borough Council. So the outcome of this inaction has seen blocking of new homes from being built, especially in brownfield and urban sites, such as the old Debenhams and Nason sites in our city. That's what blocked those for years. Maybe if we'd not had blocked development, they could have been developed quicker, and maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we are now. And you have to reflect on that. It's possibly just an imaginary, just wishful thinking perhaps, but who knows. So currently, our two councils have around 5,000 homes with planning permission that have been stopped from being built by this issue. That to me is totally unacceptable. It's also baffling to me that the position of opposition parties such as the Greens are so adamantly opposed to this arrangement in every opportunity they get. They fail to support it. So as an administration, we took a very different view of the problem we inherited from the Tories. It's taken a lot longer, unfortunately, than we hoped to, and required considerable work to establish Stour environmental credits. But SEC, as it's known, has been, in my opinion, worth that pain, shifting the conversation on building homes in the Stour catchment from can't to can. SEC is now better suited and can be much bolder and effective, to a large degree empowered by a supportive Labour government now and a £4 million start-up funding, which has been or is being well and truly used and invested to create the credits by Stour Environmental Credits, which are now unsold in this not-for-profit making company. SEC are geared to deliver around 40% of nutrient mitigation in the Stour catchment and already have credits to issue after signing contracts with a company to replace ageing septic tanks. And in just a few months of work, the company has accrued credits. We've been able to approve 57 properties in 17 applications, 8 in Ashford and 9 in Canterbury. Small and very positive start of this administration and this council and of this company. And it's set up to ramp up as new tranches of credits are created. So the business plan that we seek to endorse tonight reflects that position. It's unashamedly a report on a company that's in the embryonic stage. The company journey is just starting. The plan is pragmatic and cautious and will also underpin our local plan delivery ambitions, which is absolutely critical. I believe we can support the business plan and the proposed governance arrangements. I would, however, support requesting a short report to Cabinet from around 6 months, reflecting what I expect to be a ramping up of delivery and the possible broadening of scope into biodiversity net gain credits, and other councils possibly becoming involved. And I think that 6-month period, the next 6 months of the year, will be an important time to actually reflect on those. So I'm really pleased to suggest that to you. I'm going to read the correct wording. Thank you for that. So, that the 2026-27 draft business plan for Surrey Environmental Credits Limited be approved. If I could seek a seconder before we start debate.
Seconded.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, any thoughts and comments by people? Oh, yeah, that's a really good point, actually. There is an exempt, Alex, and in that obviously puts the figures onto the credits. I don't want to discuss that in open cabinet, but if we're happy to continue that without, I think it's really, we know what they are, but you know, it's business confidential, isn't it? If we're happy with that, sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. So, yeah, thanks for that. Sorry, it's Lee first, and then Mel, Connie, and then Chris. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I've had some dental work today, so I can't actually feel the right-hand side of my face. So, yeah, this is brilliant. Weirdly, I suppose it's a complex matter that a lot of people won't look into, but obviously in conjunction with the head of planning and Bill, the lead officer, this is a good scheme. You know, people have worked hard behind the scenes. It's not probably going to seem popular because obviously we're talking about getting houses moving, which is quite divisive, and I'm sure we're going to have a week of that divisive house building. What a surprise, in the week of a local plan. But for me, you know, it's a top-down system. We've got to deliver them. It's completely bottlenecked some really important sites across the district. And I think it's something we've got to, you know, keep the momentum on. I think one just side note, I think we really need the comms on our side. I think Ashford are slightly ahead of us, but I think that's a bit of luck, and I've had a bit of cynicism as well from residents. You know, a couple of the officers have mentioned to me that people don't think it might not be right or wrong, or, you know, is it a scam or whatever. And I think there's a bit of work to go in there, but it's positive, and it means we can unlock the credits, transfer them onto schemes that are needed, and like you touched on, two of the most important ones, you know, and there will be others that fall into that catchment. So yeah, excellent thing. Not everyone's cup of tea, but vitally important. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. Appreciate that. I think it's important about the delivery of those, because when we looked at the numbers I gave, it's just 57 developments, very small, over, I think it was 8 and a 9 or something like that, wasn't it? Whatever it was, I can't remember. It was, they are the small and medium businesses that are really struggling. And that to me is really, really important. It's so important to start those building again. Okay, it was Mel next, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the report. Yeah, I totally agree with you about all the good things in the report. I just got a few concerns for the future, such as something's happened to my computer. There we go. Yeah, so like, I'm not. Are you able to tell me, Chair, whether the credit company is, well, at the moment doesn't seem to be any enforcement about how to make sure that the developers are doing what they're saying they're going to do. So how is that going to be built in the future? And will it be the company does the enforcing, or will it be the local authority that does the enforcing later on to make sure that they're doing it? And then I believe that some of the the mitigations are becoming more expensive. So you buy the credits and then they kind of lose value. So then what I'm trying to say, so basically there will be a viability issue that might come up with the developers later on, saying that, you know, it's more expensive now, so now our viability, we've got more excuse to say we're not going to do all the things we're going to say. So how are we going to work that one out? So yeah, I think it's a great scheme, and you know, it's doing a really good job, something that we need to do, but it's got a few things that might pop in the future, and you definitely need to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, just coming back on it, the allocation of credits is tightly controlled. You know, as they're controlled by issue to a particular contract, a particular developer and a particular site. So that's tightly controlled. And they have to be signed off by, Bill knows straight away, but it's the Environment Agency, I believe, have to approve the issue of the credit, if you like. So it's either that or Natural England. I'm not sure. I have checked, but it has to be approved by one of those bodies before it's allowed to be issued, if you like. So it would be a septic tank would be changed, and it would be worth X number of credits, X number amounts of phosphate and nitrate, and then the credit can be achieved from that. So those figures are agreed and signed off before they're issued. So they're credible, and I say the issue is tightly controlled. Mitigations are to, at this point, to simply accrue phosphates, phosphate and nitrogen credit, but the company is set up to allow nutrient neutrality as well as biodiversity net gain or any other particular credits that may, environmental credits that may or may not come forward in the future. It may be appropriate that we as councils can get involved in their supply of those credits as well. So I think that was the points covered, but all points noted, Mel. Thanks for that. Connie?
Thank you. The Stour, the Studmarsh, is the area of real concern, I know, to everybody, and the Stour runs from the Ashford area downwards. And people who know me well will not be surprised by what I'm going to say next. It's not that long ago that this area of Kent was known for its paper mills and its paper production. And one of the things, the characteristics of paper production is it takes an awful lot of water from a water source, the rivers, Medway, the Stour in particular, and that, uses it in the paper process. And the proud boast of the paper makers was it went back into the river cleaner than when it came out. So, as I say, people who know me well will not be surprised to know that I'm going to say, I think that's what we should be doing with the money that we get from these credits. We should be actively looking at technology which is ages old. And when we look at Charlton Mill, we can see that the infrastructure is still there. It's not that difficult to actually make sure that the runoff from various things into the river can be cleaned up. We don't have to sort of sit on our hands and say, oh goodness, we've now got the money that we can actually move forward and improve things in our district. Thank you.
Yeah, some quite interesting points actually going forward on that. They're looking at accruing credits from moving reducing the runoff from farm fields, as well as that as well. And also I think we shouldn't ever lose sight of, which we'll come back to on local plan conversations as well, is that by 2030 sewage works will be, discharges will be at best technical levels, which is tiny levels of nutrient as well as other waste going back into the water. So it's not far away, 2030, and the two sewage works, one at Bybrook and one at Canterbury is significantly worse than the one at Bybrook, which is already at very low levels. So both sites will be significantly improved between now and 2030, and that changes the dynamic considerably in what we've seen in the river. So that's a good point, no, Connie. Thanks. Chris, next, please. Thank you.
Just picking up on Lee's comment. On Friday, I was at the launch of a Marmot review, and I love it when Britain's leading immunologist quotes a Welsh Marxist in his speech. It was so sufficient, but I had to take a quote. This is a quote from Raymond Williams in the 1970s. He said, "To be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing." I think over this week, we're going to meet a lot of people who tried to tell us that we should despair at the situation of sewage and nutrient neutrality. I think we need to focus on the hope that this can be solved. And I actually think this is evidence that with a little bit of, kind of clear foresight and bringing people together, you can create a model which actually seeks to resolve a problem rather than just dwell in the fact that it exists. There's some obviously really good work here. I hope that it can unlock some of those housing sites, which if they're not unlocked, keep us in presumption for far longer and make that despair into a kind of thought spiral which people get into. We need practical solutions to the problems that we face. And it's great that the Stour Environmental Credits is one of them.
Chris, that's some wise words there. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. And this is really, until the government infrastructure bill delivers, which will be 10 years plus away by the time we start to get real long-term improvements to that, because it takes a long time to get there. This is going to be a crackingly good way of moving forward and making sure that we're able to build homes, especially in those smaller sites, on brownfield sites. Very much so. Thank you for that. Alex, next, please.
Yes, thank you. I think this, I'm delighted to see this moving now and getting where it is. There's a few, I get quite a few questions from people. I think as Lee said, that we might, there might be some negativity, but I think that the people I've spoken to who are looking for this, for instance, in my area, I know that the guy looking to redevelop Hall Place into housing there is absolutely desperate to get involved with this scheme. There's a few others out there as well, and obviously there's plenty of the city centre development there. And I think people generally understand that there are certain things that they would like to see done that are being blocked by, quite rightly, the need to protect the Stour catchment. But this is something that can help those start to move. And the measures that it puts in place, some of them are absolutely genius as well. And I think it's not just something about freeing up infrastructure delivery and freeing up things to be built. This could in the future be an opportunity for those creative solutions that people often come up with. Why can't we do this to improve the runoff? Why can't we could do this, you could build this, you could put the ideas that I am nowhere near clever enough to come up with. But this could be the focal point for that. If you can take people to this, there's the funding source available. If somebody comes up with a really innovative idea to say, as Connie says, to put water back in cleaner than it was taken out, or really do that, this could be that focal point for that creativity. We've got plenty of minds working in environmental sciences in this part of the world who might well be encouraged by this to go, okay, here's the tool that you can use to make that happen. And this is a way that we can really deliver results to the environment in a way that just simply hasn't been done for the last sort of 10 or 15 years. So I'm delighted to see this back, and much may it continue and start moving very quickly, hopefully.
Yeah, me too. So it's just started to deliver quite a few credits, and there's a lot more coming through. So yeah, it's working, and it has to be a positive move, doesn't it? I think in many senses, we just need to get behind that and support it as its embryonic company grows, and goes to company advisory board too, doesn't it? I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah, goes to company advisory board as well. So it's another job for them to do, and we look forward to that as well. So that's really good. So any more comments for anybody? Yeah, of course, come back.
Sorry, Chair. As Bill's not here, Mel, just to go back to your comment, sorry, just to clear it up for public record, obviously, Bill and me had a conversation the other day, not to discuss credit costs, but the idea is schemes that are deliverable will come forward first. So we're not going to be giving credits. I understand that rightly, Chair. A scheme that's 6 years away won't be given priority over a scheme that can be done now, and that's sorry, my mouth, honestly, I'm just going to give up. Basically, someone very important will decide what scheme can be delivered, they'll get the credit, so then it'll make the viability acceptable. So there should be no lag in that, because that is a concern. But also, one last point is, don't forget, there will be private sector credits coming forward over the next couple of years as well. So that will potentially mean that people go outside of our scheme. We hope they don't, because we think ours is the best one, but that will help move things as well. So it's like a two-pronged attack. But just to clear that up, sorry, thank you.
No, you're absolutely right. It's really good. You're quite right. I mean, there's no point in locking credits up that may or may not ever be used. So that's absolutely true. But likewise, actually, you recall that the board are able to release credits, sort of like an emergency credits, if you like, if there's a development that needs those credits quickly, to unlock a development that can go ahead very quickly, maybe something in a brownfield area, then that could also be put before the board and they can make a decision yes or no. But also, we shouldn't forget also that it's 40% of the credits in this area they're looking to supply. There's other people out there with other schemes that have got credits for sale as well, and different ways of actually funding those credits as well. So some of these probably work best for the smaller companies, but other companies are out there as well. So which is part of that swim, and we've got some skin in the game now, as you say. That's really good. So if we're happy with that, we can approve their business plan. Thank you very much.
And that's carried unanimously.
Hey, right. Part B of the agenda, is consideration without any further public comment. So item 11 is the Wincheap Park and Ride options to increase capacity to 900 spaces to meet demand for the A28, A2. This is with Alex to introduce. Richard Moore is here as well to help out with questions and technical stuff. If you could introduce then Alex and then propose the vote, and I will second it for you as a generous gesture backwards. All right? So fine.
Well, thank you very much. Long awaited, not that long awaited. I'll just go briefly into it, but I think shall I do the proposing bit first? It's a bit of a spoiler because we've got a very long paper with several other options here, but I am suggesting this evening and proposing that option C is agreed and a planning application is submitted for a park and ride on the Cannon Co site as shown in the outline design drawing in Appendix 3, that the Head of Transport and Environment, in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Tourism, Transport and Rural Champion, all of whom are me, is given the delegated authority to make minor changes to the layout as required through the planning process, and that any additional capital and revenue requirements will be subject to the budget process for 27-28, identifying the additional costs and funding sources. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, so first of all, I should mention that the paper has many options, and the discussions, which I think we were all either here for or listening to online of the Overview Committee on the 12th of February, went through those in detail, as is true, and I will reflect some of the comments made that evening later on. The first point I'd like to make is that when talking about this is the options that were put before that committee, and indeed put before you tonight, are the viable options. They're the ones that can work. There were many, many, many other options considered over years and months before this that have been rejected because they simply aren't viable. And I think people have come up with their ideas of other alternatives and where things could be and what could be done. And in some cases, they are things that may have some merit in the future, and everybody has their own favourite one, but in terms of the options that were in this paper and were put forward, those are ones that could work, that could go forward into a local plan. And that's why perhaps we have a fairly limited number of options there. And of course, I think there's much debate and obvious public scrutiny of those. And I think we've been left in no doubt as to what the general public feel about a few of those options. The debate on the 12th of February was slightly confused. I think we're all getting to that state as we get close to the local plan that it's getting difficult to discuss things in public. It's a very long and difficult process, and a lot of it's quite technical, but nonetheless, there were some fantastic comments made that evening. Councillors did express their views clearly, and some good questions were raised. But I think it was clear from that night, and as is seen by this, that the committee clearly steered towards option C, the Cannon Co option. I think that's one that we can say has broadly received a lot of approval from the public, with that caveat that by no means is that the perfect solution in and of itself. It's the best of this lot that will work, and it will work. I think we went on a site visit to have a look at the site itself. The cost has been raised a couple of times. A huge part of the cost of this option is the relocating of the Cannon Co depot, and that's the first phase of this as well. If it was simply an empty space and we're building a car park, it would be much cheaper, and that's the first initial phase of it, which is why the costs are so high. That is something that we were probably going to do in the future anyway, but that has to be moved up as part of this. So that's what's hidden within that. There was one point that was raised I want to address directly, which is there's been some confusion about the A2 off-slip at Wincheap. It's something that's always been part of every transport strategy, was always going to happen. I think some designs were submitted that weren't approved initially. That was on the basis that more designs would be submitted, not that it wasn't going to happen. And I think that's confused some people thinking that the A2 off-slip was off and is on again. But this model and the other things to take account of it is very much to take care of the traffic coming off the A2. It's not a case that we have to build a park and ride in order to facilitate the A2 off-slip. It's the other way around. There will be an A2 off-slip, therefore we have to have more capacity for the park and ride. And I think that addresses quite a few of the objections to putting something in place at Wincheap. So I think a lot of people thought, well, why do we have to have it at Wincheap anyway? And the thing is, that's where traffic's going to be coming off, and that's where we need a park and ride. And I think that takes me to the second core point in this is park and rides don't work unless they're on the way into the place you're visiting. People will not drive past their destination to go to a park and ride. And I think you can see from some of the behaviour around the roundabouts in Canterbury that people aren't even willing to do a 3-second detour to let somebody through onto a roundabout, let alone a 5-minute detour to a park and ride on the other side of the city. So it has to be there for the traffic that's coming from the north and west and a certain part of the south as well, that comes into the city from that way. It has to be there to capture that traffic and stop it going into the city centre and causing further congestion. It does mean as well that this massively supports some of the elements of the local plan. That's not just necessarily this particular option, but the idea of the Wincheap Park and Ride itself. We need much better bus connectivity for Wincheap, much better bus connectivity for that side of city. At the moment, your main buses into town for a lot of the day are actually park and ride buses from that part of the city. This will help increase that bus route through there, the journey times for buses as well. And I'm pleased to say that there are already some monies coming through from previous developments in that area, providing bus services, and potentially parts of the new local plan will add to that as well. So it is a vital part of the transport strategy. It is a really important area for that to be as well. All of the options have been considered. Is there does have to be something in Wincheap. I think that the two options that were most detailed, considered in most detail by the overview committee, were the multi-storey car park and this option, the Cannon Co site. Having had a look at it and having had a look at how that would work with having two slightly separated sites, it's already on the bus route. It will work effectively, and it won't be too much of a detour for cars coming in there. It will continue to do the job it's supposed to do. And I do really think that this is quite an elegant solution to an incredibly difficult problem. It's a problem that's been wrestled with by councils here for many years, and I hope that this is something that provides us a short-term solution to the issue of what we're going to do with the off-slip, but also provides us options in the future as Wincheap continues to change and regenerate, that this actually frees up some options in terms of opening up that corner of Wincheap a little bit more with people coming to visit the city as well. So I commend it to you, and I hope that you will deem to support option C, the Canonco option.
Thanks for that. Any comments to go with that? I've got Connie.
I'm so pleased that we've come up with this solution. It's always been a sort of very difficult nettle to grasp. And I think we've faced up to the fact that whatever we did, we would get criticism. But actually thinking about building on the wreck at Fannington was an absolute, in my head, no-go, which I did express privately at the time. And I supported by Mel as well on that. But the thing is that, you know, we have to make hard decisions. And I think this is the best that we can do. And I'd like to thank Richard for putting up with, you know, being asked to do the impossible so many times and then ask them to do it again. I think it's going to work because, as you say in the report, the Windcheap park and ride at Christmas time, that's when you need the extra, and then that can be in the overflow part. And also the fact that people will be on the bus, so, you know, they just got to, it's like being at the airport, isn't it? You know, sort of, when you're at the airport car parks, you just stand in line and wait for the bus to come round and you get on the bus. It's going to be that. I do hope that we pick up on some of the things that came up in the consultation, particularly the fact that when you come off the A2 from Dover, it doesn't tell you that there is a park and ride at New Dover Road. I mean, it talks about Windcheap turn off, and it talks about the Sturry park and ride. And I often, because I live that end of the town, I'm screaming at it, where's New Dover Road park and ride? And I know everything's subject to change, a bit like the staircases at Hogwarts, isn't it? But I do think, yeah, thank you very much, Richard, you and your team, for this hybrid solution, and thank you for a very difficult piece of work. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'm just going to check. I was kind of thinking you'd probably better come back at the end of that. Is that all right? Or do you want to make some comments? Yeah, is that all right? Just thinking there's probably going to be several similar things. So we've got Charlotte and then Mel, please.
Absolutely backing option C. It's the right option. Very useful to hear the comments of overview. We've had many discussions sort of offline around this in private. We looked in detail at the spaces and the people affected on myriad options. Just obviously we did vote to pass the Canonco service delivery plan, but it is noted in the report here that if we do agree option C, it could well have cost and service implication on Canonco, and we may need to revisit the plan just passed at a period a little sooner than expected. I'm just noting that because of the item of the order of the items in today's agenda. So it is passed, but if we do pass option C, I'm anticipating revisions to the service delivery plan just passed. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. It's wise to point that out. Appreciated. So, Mel.
Yeah, it was just a short comment, really. Yeah, I'm totally happy to support option C all the way. Yeah, I mean, on the basis that half of that option is already concrete, whereas the other 4 options, I think, are not. So that's kind of like the bottom line for me. Obviously, from the overview, the councillors put in a sort of recommendation, and there was stating that there was no enthusiasm to build on the water meadows or the recreation grounds. So, you know, taking that on board as well. Thank the team for doing a quick turnaround when this suggestion was put there, and it was a quick turnaround. And thank you very much for doing that. And I feel like we're doing the right thing by voting for option C. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Yeah, I mean, my thanks to the team as well, Richard, Steve, just putting this together. It was tough, very tough. It was hard for all of us. I'll take Pip, and then I'm going to get Richard to sum up and add some texture to it if he can, please. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. So when we've all,
lived, breathed, and probably had nightmares about this. Not least the officers for over time. I feel really positive about it. I think I'm maybe the most gung ho about elements of this plan, but also the local plan that some people are talking about, for example, as the least worst option. And, nothing is perfect, but, this is... I feel really positive about our transport strategy. And our transport strategy requires park and rides. And I'm really positive about it. I don't make any apologies for it at all. Working out the best possible location is always difficult. But, as my old gran used to say, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. And absolutely, if we want our prize, which is a change in, and the transport strategy that's proposed in our draft local plan, we absolutely need this. And I think option C is cracking. Thank you.
That sums it up, doesn't it? Really, I think. Yeah, it's good that Pip linked back there. We should have linked that much sooner. Probably the fact it is so much part of the transport strategy, Alex, isn't it? That as well. That's good. Yeah. Go on then, Lee. Go for it.
There was just one thing that I just wanted to add. I think as it's a public meeting, and I'm not sure that many Canenco staff will sit of an evening and watch our meeting. But I think one thing to get across is it's been spoken by all cabinet members is the staff and the move of the site. A couple of residents said to me, and that's a very green thing. I do apologise. They said my residents said, but what's going to happen? I think it's really good to make it clear. And I think Rich will confirm that the property team, people looking at alternative sites, there's a really forward-thinking plan, and it's not a case of sorry, we're going to be sending you to the nether regions of the district. And I think also that's really positive because when a new authority comes in, they'll probably review everything again. So, being ahead of that curve, I think is really positive. And just to touch on Pip's line, which she's stolen, I was going to use a line similar. But I think it's really important that we do something that moves things in a positive direction. It isn't the least worst option, like Pip said, not to repeat it. It's a good idea. It's where it is already, and Richard's team can deliver it with the strategic approach and actually it will be delivered quite quickly. The one thing I wanted to clarify, if it's okay, just to ask a direct question, the slip road was mentioned. It'd be nice publicly, I know it mentioned a lot overview of the timelines. It'd be good just to re-clarify that publicly, I think, of when a slip road might go in, when the Canenco site might move hypothetically in a timeline, just if that's okay, thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Perfect timing. Over to you, Richard. And you've even got your first part of the job as well.
And thank you, Cabinet, for your comments. It is, I think it is a good option. It definitely will work in transport terms. There were some questions about where we move Canenco to. Obviously, there's a bit unknown, and if this the proposal gets supported, then obviously the bit of hard work happens with the property team is looking at feasible and suitable relocation sites, and that doesn't always necessarily only mean capital investment. We're looking at leasing land as well, suitable land, obviously with local government reorganisation. In 4 or 5 years' time, we don't know what the makeup will be of waste services, collection services. So it might be that it's probably not the best business case to actually buy a new site. It might be if we can get a suitable lease site or sites that we already own and control. So there'll be a further bit of work, a lot of work undertaken, and a further report will be brought back to Cabinet to approve relocation site in due course. And similarly, if this option is supported, then the officers will start work on the planning application. And we'd hoped to get that application in within 12 months. Looking at timelines, and there is still some uncertainty with the current judicial review. Obviously, this is the delivery of the off slip is not within our control; it's within the developer's control. They are looking, and I have to remind myself now on the timeline. I think I say it in the report. So yes, provisional phasing I put in here of ideally we want the Canenco operation relocated by December 27. So that's pretty fast track. But that's the timeline we're working to. In parallel, that obviously we'll get the plan application in and hopefully approved, and then the construction of the park and ride on the Cotton Road site could start January 28. So maybe a year for that, and that would then give time for the provisional start of the A2 off slip the following year. The beauty of this solution is we've already got temporary parking available. So actually, all the other solutions, we'd have had to find some temporary parking. This solution works perfectly in that. So we get a 450 spaces, I think, on day one that the off-slip construction starts. There's one question that came up on the A2 signing and the new Dover Road sign from the Dover direction. It's been a frustration for mine and my team for many years. There was one there, the people who go back, there was a sign that signed New Dover Road and Wincheap. Highways England took it down for some reason, I can't remember why. Over the years, we've tried to get them to put it back without success, but I will try again. It is, as you say, it's an important sign for people from Dover to know that it's not just Wincheap they can use. They need to come off and use New Dover Road. So leave that with me. I will start that discussion and dialogue again with them. But it's a good solution. It will certainly work in transport terms. I don't know, Susie, if you want to say anything else on relocation. If you're not happy, no. Okay, I shall leave it there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Any other points at all? Okay. In that case, when we vote, we're going to move this forward as option C. Okay.
And that's been carried unanimously, Chair.
That's great. Thanks, team, for that. Right. Okay. That's the final page, is it?
I don't know, I think it might be over.
That's the
The next meeting.
and then it's the final bits of words of wisdom, isn't it? I've got that somewhere.
Got it here, you can read it off here. Go back into that, Chair. There you go.
Okay, let's do that then. So, right, thank you for that then. So, date and time of the next meeting, Wednesday. This is the question that I want nobody to get wrong. What time are we getting there? Who said 7 o'clock? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday the 18th is the next meeting. I don't think any urgent business notified, so okay, we can move to that. And we don't need to exclude the press and public because obviously the last item and the one about Stour credits we dealt with. There's no other urgent business that I know of. No. Okay. In that case, we close the meeting at exactly 9 o'clock, 2100. Thank you very much.